David, I think is you know, I don't know how he does everything that he does. He is, you know, kind of an ideal leader for Facet. He, you know, people, at the time that he was made a Facet member, he was chair of chemistry, a very serious researcher. What is he doing talking about teaching? But he has always cared a lot about teaching. He's participated in Carnegie projects, has, you know, and is exactly the kind of role model that I think Facet facilitates the exposure of people like that.
I was lucky. I got inducted in 1994, and so I've now been a member. I think what happened was I joined the organization thinking there was going to be a meeting, and that was sort of the extent of what it meant. But what I didn't realize is what went on at that meeting, that it was a very therapeutic and uplifting and supportive event where you met people from around the state. And this is a time when I knew very few people from other than the Indianapolis campus. So it was an opportunity to meet people from Bloomington and the regional campuses, IU Northwest, IU South Bend, Southeast, etc. And so it was a very interesting opportunity to compare what you do, to talk about what you do, the types of students that you have in your class, and the problems that you thought you had that they didn't have.
David was more in a matter of, okay, now we have this body who's willing to do this. How can we raise it to another level? And how can we get administrators to recognize what we do? How can we get more of a national reputation? And how can we actually be a force in the IU system to bring about some systemic changes? And I think that's naturally going with the growth of the organization, but I think it also reflects a bit of their leadership styles. David was very much centered in the administration within IU, and so he was in a unique position to get the ear of administrators and really communicate to them what Facet is and what it can be and what we can do to improve the university.
Northwest certainly has multiple members representing the campus, and the hope is to continue those people. So Tanis was in fact on the steering committee for a while. Chuck Gallmeyer has been on the committee for a while. Ken Schoon has been on the steering committee for a while, and it's all to give some longevity. And there are certain people who come up who aren't necessarily on the steering committee but are frequently at Facet retreats.
I was on the committee that selected David Malik, and I remember when he walked in the room, I didn't know who he was, you know. Yeah, I'd seen him at Facet retreats, but didn't really know him. So he walks into the room, and he starts talking, and his energy, his vibrancy, he is just contagious. And I was so thrilled that he had applied to be Facet director, because I thought that he was just what we needed. This energetic, enthusiastic person who had the ability to bring everybody together, who had the ability to really charm people. And so I think that he was exactly the right person at the right time to keep that vibrancy going, to energize Facet.
He wants people to do their thing, you know, and what he tries to do is, I think, set up the environment for them to do that. I mean, he's not someone who says this is my way and this is what you have to do. But he brought the same conscientious approach to directing Facet. I mean, he worked magic. In fact, because of what he did with Facet is why I decided to pursue him to come to IU Northwest when we lost our Vice Chancellor. I saw what he did here, and I thought, geez, he could come to IU Northwest and work the same magic with us as he did there. And he has. Yeah. He's just enthusiastic. He makes you feel good about what you do. He encourages people to step outside the box. scholarship of teaching matters to him. He doesn't see it as something less than what's often called traditional research. He does believe, and I think he's right, that good teaching is more than just being inside the classroom. Good teaching has to include scholarship. It has to include the things you do outside the classroom. And I think that was basically, throughout his 4 years, a message he tried to send throughout all of his meetings and what he would talk about. He was just very, very good at it.
David's had the challenge of always having multiple roles while he was serving as director, although that meant some good connections because he was serving as assistant to Charles Bance and then serving as interim vice chancellor up in your neck of the woods. Yeah. So that's been good connections, I think, for Facet to connect into other parts of the university.
In my case, I don't know how many there were and where they were from. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot of time, and you have to have the union of several events, you know, like you're at a part of your career where you can afford to say, yes, I can spend roughly half my time on nurturing something. And for me, I was in the latter part of my career, so I had just, well, I guess 5 or 6 years before that, I was department chair for a decade. And I guess I violated my rule about 4 or 5 or 6 years, being chair for a decade.
And then there's David. You know, what can you say about David? I mean, he's just a very creative, energetic person, and I think he was. Well, I think Sharon and Bob might have been. Maybe he was the director when we did the choir. I can't really remember who was the director then. But I've worked with David in other capacities on the PA Mac Fellowship program. And he's just an energetic person. I mean, he's just an amazing person. And I'm sorry to see him step down, but you know, there's always somebody that comes along that picks up the reins and adds something to the whole process. So looking forward to seeing who's going to be the next director.
To energize Facet, and I loved working with David. You know, it's just he's so easy to work with, and he has such a massive knowledge of the university, and just a pleasure to work with David. And so I was very pleased that he was Facet director. And you know, we knew from the very beginning that we wouldn't have him long, because he was so involved with other administrative responsibilities. But we all kept hoping, you know, that he would stay, just because he was so engaging, just such an engaging person. And so then when he announced that he was going to step down, I was like, okay, who are we going to get that can fill his shoes?